Hello. In my work as a coach, a facilitator, a speaker about mindfulness and diversity and all kinds of other things, I hear a lot about how we categorize ourselves and others. We think this and they think that. And it has divided not only our nation, but each other. And this translates around the world. It's not just here. We see people as others, not like me. And so they must be wrong or weird or strange. They're just not like me. But here we are at the She Is Me conference. What better place to realize, to see the me in you and the you in me? This is never more important than today. When we can see each other on a human level, even if we don't understand each other in our way of speaking, our beliefs, our skin or hair color. When we can do that, we open our minds to allowing the humanity to be the focus, not the difference. We can begin to see the commonalities we all have as a way to start thinking of those others as human, just like me, just like you. This whole idea of diversity and inclusion, equity, belonging, it's really about paying attention to the people we interact with at home, out in the community, at work, how each person is treated as an individual human being, not as a class, not as a subgroup. We all deserve to have an opportunity to be at the table, to be part of the conversation, to be noticed. I'm passionate about creating environments where all are welcome and feel respected, part of something, not sidelined, not ignored. I'm an ally. But really, an ally, what does that mean? Being an ally means that I put emphasis on being present and aware of the biases that are encountered in my day-to-day life. Now, does that mean I spend a lot of time calling people out for their biases? No, not so much. Yes, I've been to rallies and meetings. I've done training with Stanford, and I'm a partner with Diversity Crew, where we help organizations understand their situation, their way of being, and how their biases are affecting their lives and the lives of others. Bias is normal. We all have one or two. And I've studied how bias affects us as individuals, as communities, and organizations. And I've come up many times against my very own biases, taken a good look at how I too have stereotypes and make ignorant mistakes. I'm a work in progress, as are most of us. But it's never my intent to harm someone, to sideline them, make them feel less than. It is my intent to learn about the issues that I may not even see yet, to learn about other belief systems, other ways of being, and to work with rather than against those who are different than I am. I'm an ally in progress. And I hope after you hear what I have to say today that you will be too. So let's dig into that, shall we? This idea of diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging relies on allies as a key part of corporate strategy to include diversity and inclusion, because if not everyone is on board and being an ally for the people who are discriminated against or seen as less than, who are not getting the job, not having the opportunity, not being able to speak at the table. And it's pretty clear that work needs to be done, isn't it? To create a more inclusive culture, an environment in which we all want to work. But you see, these diversity and inclusion programs, they don't happen exclusively from the people who are being marginalized, because sometimes their voice simply isn't heard. Sometimes they feel invisible. Their situations, cultures, language, viewpoints are not understood or even seen. Allies are willing and able to be the go-between, the facilitator of the conversations that really, really need to happen on many levels. Allies are the people who are looking out for issues that need to be addressed and bringing that to the attention of those who need to address them. Allies are paying attention to the levels of discrimination and recognizing that not everyone knows what the person who isn't at the table is dealing with. Allies look to better understand what the issues are so they can represent, so they can be present, to be mindful. And whether they are leaders or coworkers, working to create a feeling of belonging and acceptance for all viewpoints, even the ones we don't agree with within the organization or out in our community. If we're truly to be inclusive, then we need to be focused on including, not excluding. But I believe that when we confront someone about something they say or do that hurts another person, it can sometimes cause more hurt than good, unless we do it right. I'm not always perfect, believe me, and I've made a mess of it quite a few times. But sincerely, I believe that when we can help someone rather than judge them, we can change the world through kindness and compassion. That doesn't mean we let it slide when someone uses their bias in a way that we don't like. And we turn a blind eye or pretend we didn't see it, or give tacit approval by not doing anything. It means that we choose how and when to respond consciously and appropriately. When we use our mindful self-awareness and compassion, it helps us to be more aware of how others are being treated and really be an ally. Being an ally isn't about sympathy or pity. It's about actively supporting others, even if they're on both sides of the struggle. When someone's showing a blatant bias against another person, most of the time, it just shows a lack of understanding. Sure, we can call them out and make them feel judged and wrong, or we can help them see how, just like them, the person they hold bias against is another human being. That both they and the other person want to be happy, to be safe, to be understood. It's my mission to help people understand that we are all human. We make mistakes. We have wildly different opinions on everything, but we can get along, even with those we don't agree with at all, by recognizing the human in all of us. So I'd like you to try a little experiment with me. Bring to mind someone you don't really know much about. Maybe their ethnicity is different than you. They wear different clothing. Or maybe you have a stereotype about their hair color. It doesn't take much to carry an unconscious bias about a person you feel different than. Maybe it's somebody that annoys you at work, at the grocery store, someone you encountered in your day-to-day and went, "Oh, that person." Now, if you're comfortable with it, close your eyes or keep them open. But take a moment to visualize this person. Really see them in your mind's eye. See their face, their mannerisms. Even if it annoys you, try to stay with them as a human. And repeat after me. This person has feelings, emotions, and thoughts, just like me. This person has at some time been sad, disappointed, angry, or hurt, just like me. This person has experienced suffering, just like me. This person has felt unworthy or inadequate, just like me. This person worries and is frightened sometimes, just like me. This person wishes to be free from suffering, just like me. They wish to be safe and healthy, to be happy, to be cared for. All of these things, just like me. Now make room for some well wishes to come into your heart for this person who is just like you in some way. And say to yourself and to them, I wish this person to have the support and resources they need to handle them with difficulty, to handle difficulties in life with ease. I wish this person to be free from suffering, to be happy, to be loved and cared for, to have better understanding. Because this person is a fellow human being, just like me. This is a mindfulness practice that's about compassion for others, recognizing our common traits, our humanity, no matter who they are. We are all in this world together. Each of us have many different identities that make up who we are. I wear a lot of hats, and I have a lot of identities. I'm a woman, a mom, a geek, a wife, a gay person, a CEO, a volunteer, a horse person, a caregiver, foodie, cat lover, and a dog lover too. All of these are parts of me that make up who I am, how I represent myself to the world. Each of us has so many facets to show the world. We don't show all of them all the time, or some of them we don't show at all, but they're still there. These different individual things intersect and inform the way we are in the world. It's called intersectionality. When we can consider the many facets of another person, we can recognize similarities in each other. And we can begin to have better relationships, no matter how brief. And suddenly we kind of find that our similarities help us to be an ally for someone. Maybe even someone we don't totally understand, because we have a basis for understanding that really never ends. Learning to see that intersection between us and them. It's a catalyst for understanding. And as an ally, it's a crucial skill. Heck, as a human, it's a very valuable skill, worth actively developing in a conscious way. Doing this simple practice when we encounter people that maybe rub us the wrong way, or maybe we don't understand. When we do this in a conscious way, it changes the way we see everyone. When we open our eyes with curiosity. Of course, sometimes we see aggressive behavior towards others. An example. Recently, there was an incident of hate against an Asian woman. She simply got off the bus at a regular stop. She was attacked viciously by a man who hated her for no other reason that she was Asian. He didn't know her, didn't know a thing about her. He just lashed out and attacked her. A crowd of people gathered, as happens. But no one stopped it. The woman lay on the sidewalk, and eventually the man ran off. If you came upon this, what should you do as an ally? I was in a recent advocacy training, and we heard this story, and everyone was asked how they should respond. Some people said, I would have gotten in the middle of that. I would have yelled at him to stop. I would have chased him, taken him down for the police. Notice that everyone put their focus on how to deal with the aggressor, not the person being attacked. Actually, violence always begets violence. Yes, it's a human reaction, but it's not always the right move. Adding aggression to this incident could have escalated it. Other people could have been hurt, even the ally. The recommended action when we're a bystander to aggression like that is, if it's safe and prudent, take photos or videos to document what happened, not to put on YouTube and glorify the act, but to change the focus from the attacker to the victim. We don't want to give the attacker the attention they probably crave. We do documentation for the victim so that later, when they don't really remember exactly what happened, there's a record. We also want to take a moment to speak to the victim, but in a calm and friendly way. Let them know that you're a safe person. Use eye contact to let them know that you're here to help. Don't pay your attention to the aggressor. When we don't give them attention, when we stand with the victim, aggressors usually lose their energy and probably leave. We don't want to get hurt, but we want to help the victim get to a neutral place so they can regain their composure. Don't touch them unless you ask first. And don't tell them what to do. Ask them what they need. Do they need help calling a friend, getting to a safe place? Do they need someone to stay with them while someone comes to help? Listen with compassion and respect to whatever it is they have to say and what they want to do next. Be present. Be kind for the person who's attacked. Now, in the workplace or out in the community, violent aggressions are a little bit less common. They're more subtle. Something a lot of us don't even see, like microaggressions. These are the small things people do that hurt others consciously or unconsciously. They're sneaky because they're subtle. And often nobody notices at all. Because if it isn't you, it doesn't ring any alarm bells. But it doesn't mean it doesn't have a large impact on the person who's experiencing it. Over time, repeated microaggressions can force people to change their behavior, affect their mood, productivity. It can change their lives. These microaggressions may present as insults or comments that seem innocent but are hurtful. And again, often, but not always, microaggressions are unintentional. They're about ignorance, lack of understanding. So, for example, saying to someone from another country, "Wow, you speak English so well," presuming that they wouldn't speak English well. It's an illogical assumption, isn't it? Here's one I hear so often. Let's say you're in a shopping mall and you see a Black woman with a large purse. You might notice she's being closely watched by the clerks. Maybe they're even following her through the store. I have a Black friend who is a top-level executive, and she said she can't imagine being in a clothing store and just throwing a dress she wants to buy over her arm, or to open her purse and dig around in it, looking for her phone. This is an example how microaggression is always there in our daily lives in ways we just may not be seeing until we know to look. But once you start looking, you'll notice this one a lot. Putting your awareness into her shoes for a moment, how does that feel? That's empathy. That understanding of what she feels is the beginning of being an ally. And it's the beginning of us being able to see these kind of microaggressions on a regular basis and being able to find ways to support people who aren't exactly like us by recognizing the humanity within them. So, how do we deal with this? Even if it's a microaggression, how do we deal with the aggressor or the person who is being attacked? On both counts, with kindness, compassion, and equanimity. We want to meet people where they are. And if they're not exactly where we are, if they're not allies, if they're not aware, then we need to meet them there and help them to understand. So how do we approach someone when they're excluding someone else? Or perhaps they've said something that shows up as a microaggression. We do it with kindness and respect. We don't call somebody out and say, "Hey, that was a wrong thing to say. You're an idiot." That's not going to go well, is it? It's just not the right way to treat people in any situation. The way we want to deal with a microaggression like that is to first reach out to the person who the microaggression was directed at and ask them, was that a problem for you? I noticed this. How does that make you feel? Oftentimes people will say, it's okay, I'm used to it. Or they may see it as nothing to worry about. And just because we see it as a microaggression and they may not, we need to decide if this is something we want to call somebody out for because it doesn't upset the other person and they feel it isn't a problem. You may want to have a conversation to better understand what's going on here. Maybe you're making an assumption. At the end of the day, it's ultimately the person who is dealing with the aggression to decide if it's an issue before you start a crusade, as often happens. Who are we to assume how they should feel? Who are we to assume how it should be responded to? So if this person says, yeah, that really upset me, or yeah, I think that was disrespectful, then we ask, how would you like me to proceed? How can I help? Because I really feel like I need to talk to this person and let them know that what they said was inappropriate. But if the person says, please don't do anything, respect that. On the other hand, if they say, I don't know how to deal with it, or I wish someone would talk to them about it, that's a different subject. We need to have a lot of sensitivity here, compassion for both individuals. We don't want to make things worse. We don't want someone to feel like you are calling somebody else out in front of them and making them feel bad. We don't want to call somebody out and make them feel stupid when they just really don't know. So if we need to respond, the next step is attempting to understand, why did they do that? Where are they coming from? It might be simple ignorance, which is often the case. It could be a history issue, something that happened to them once. Or they transfer the feeling of the previous event to the current event. Sometimes it's something they were told by someone else, like the manager, to watch out for. And then they just do it without question, without thinking about it. But also in some cases, it's purposeful. And when it's purposeful, we have to be even more sensitive to how we respond so we don't make it worse by causing an angry reaction at us or at others. And I know this sounds complicated and hard, but like everything that I teach, it's microdoses. I call it microdosed mindfulness. We can do things in small batches and we need to practice. By that I mean we need to practice. Try these things out on your own. Pay attention. Be aware. And the more often you do it, the process becomes second nature. Think these things through. What kind of conversation do you think you should have for everyone involved? So, for example, let's say that someone says, I thought all you people felt this way, to someone from another culture. Well, when we have a little space around it and we've had time to think about it, at least a moment, you might say, when you said that the other day, it made me think that maybe that's not what you really meant to say. Or maybe you just didn't understand what you said was harmful. And then that person you said it to felt bad or disrespected or misunderstood. I'm sure you didn't want that to happen. Can we talk about that for a minute? I want to understand. I'm not going to ask them to apologize. I am not going to call them out and make them feel bad. I'm simply going to bring it to their attention that there might be another way to look at the situation and that the other person is essentially just like them, and that they might consider how the other person feels. If this is not enough, an inadequate way to manage it, we have to decide what we're going to do. Is this something that's happened many times, never happened before? What does the person that this act was against have to say about it? What do they want? And if it's happened many times and the other person is willing, we might need to take stronger action. And we want to think about how we're going to facilitate the conversation in a way that doesn't leave people feeling shamed or blamed or angry at the other person or at us. We want to let them know that what happened was not positive. That may mean taking it to someone else and saying, I've been seeing this pattern and it's not very good. I think that person's manager or HR may want to take this up with them. But it's not something that I feel comfortable with confronting them about, and I don't want to make things worse. Allies aren't always the ones who resolve things. We're more like a canary in a coal mine. If we're truly to be allies, we need to be more than bystanders. We need to be more than passive. We need to actively take up the issues of oppression, even if we can't fully understand what it's like to be sidelined, oppressed, for race, for gender, for ethnicity, ability, sexuality, class. So many markers of identity. We need to bring forth our compassion for the humans we see. There's this old fable about seeing an ant in a rain barrel. It can't escape on its own. One person might remove it and step on it. We can see this as hatred. Another person might just leave it alone. It's not hurting anybody. This is tolerance. But in the end, the ant might drown. Another person removes the ant and puts it someplace it can live happily. This is kindness and support. That's allyship. Allies are real. They don't stand by the sidelines and watch. They don't give lip service for the optics, but not really do anything. They don't put up posters and not really make any effort beyond that. Real allies step up. They speak for those whose voices are being silenced. We use our privilege, if we have it, to help others be heard and understood. Being an ally is not about us and our good intentions. It's about the person being held back from their true purpose. While we may feel their pain, it is not our pain. And that may be stepping aside and letting others thrive and stand in the light that would have come to us from our own privilege. It's about inviting others to speak in the meeting, to present their perspectives and ideas. It's about seeing our own biases and listening to others across their differences, seeing those microaggressions that occur around us every day, and learning how to act with authenticity. To act in the face of these pervasive events around us now, the whole world. I ask that you take a pledge right now to see your own privilege, the lack of that same privilege in others, and to be truly an ally for those around you with kindness, compassion, and action. Now, I'm not saying being an ally is easy. I'm not saying anyone is always an ally. And I'm certainly not saying there's only one right way to be an ally. But the whole purpose of this talk is to begin to see what it means to be an ally, to take those first steps to understanding yourself and others. And yes, sometimes it's hard, but it's so worth it. To see someone who has been sidelined recognize that someone notices them, to be able to step up and use whatever it is that you have to help them realize their true self, and to recognize that in each of us, in each of you, there is me. And in me, there is each of you. Now, this is a lot to think about. And if you have any questions, I would love for you to visit my website, reach out, and let's talk. If you have issues about being an ally or wondering what your next steps might be, I'd love to talk to you about that too. Please do reach out to my website, which is on the screen, and let's talk. Thank you so much.